Welcome, everyone. I just wanted to kick off the evening by reading the traditional land territory acknowledgement. So the University of Manitoba campuses are located on the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. We respect the treaties that were made on these territories, we acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past, and we dedicate ourselves to move forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. This is the part of the evening where we're going to be giving some speeches to the graduating class, and then at about 7:45, we'll move into a commencement address by Michael Redhead Champagne. And then whoever wants to stick around after that, we'll open back up the breakout rooms and we can all chat amongst ourselves. So I just wanted to start off the evening by saying congratulations to the graduating class and thank you for the many kindnesses extended to my cohort. I can't imagine the difficulty of transitioning to online classes in the middle of the semester, let alone in the first year of graduate school or as the inaugural cohort of this program. Given the adversity that the graduating class has overcome in the last 2 years, it would have been completely understandable for you to put your head down, grit your teeth, and power through. Instead, you rose to the challenge with generosity and tact. Thank you for the warm welcome to the program that you extended to my cohort and for creating a culture of passion, professionalism, and respect within the Master of Human Rights program. You've shown us by example what it means to be emerging human rights scholars and activists. And with that, I'd like to pass the floor over to Acting Dean David Asper.
Thank you, Michael, and hello, everybody. It is quite a big deal to be the first cohort in what I know is going to become the most important graduate human rights program in the world. And you're at ground zero. And so that is really something special. And, it's a great tribute to you for coming into the program, for sticking through with the program, and to our leadership. And Dr. Anderson and Dr. Reimer have done an amazing job to see you on your way out the door. I thought about what to say to you because I know everybody's heading off into doing diverse things. But human rights is an interesting field. And sometimes if you're doing what might feel like mundane things, and sometimes you might be doing larger advocacy things, it's still about human rights. And you shouldn't forget about that. And you shouldn't forget about the fact that human rights often have to be fought for, won, and maintained. And I saw something the other day, and just bear with me for a second because it sort of lit me up a little bit, and I thought I would talk to you a little bit about it as you go forward into the world. I saw a piece in the media which talked about outrage and talked about how outrage has become so prevalent that it's becoming meaningless and shrill. And it triggered me. In fact, in our breakout room, I was saying to Professor Muller, he actually got the word outrage and civility in the same sentence. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that because as human rights activists and as supporters of human rights and implementers of human rights, you may find situations where the desired outcome, the rights don't exist or they're not being applied properly. And I want to tell you my own quick little story. You're probably all too young to know that I represented a fellow named David Milgaard, who served in prison for 23 years for a crime that he didn't commit. And I was his lawyer, and I spent 6 years on it. And not only did we resolve and get him freed, resolve the case and get him freed, but we also identified the true killer. And even after doing that, the Federal Department of Justice still denied our application. And progressively, over a period of 6 years, we had to generate outrage for what was a major human rights problem, which is that an innocent person was sitting in jail. And we had to create outrage from coast to coast by every means possible because the system itself had failed. So we're successful. Milgaard gets out, and a few years later, they have a commission of inquiry. And I go to the commission of inquiry, and there's 11 lawyers running at me. These are lawyers representing the people who prosecuted Milgaard initially, the police who investigated him and incarcerated him, and they're all challenging me. And something happened when that was going on that really took me aback, which is some of these lawyers, and guess what? Old white men lawyers start running at me about professional obligations, my professional obligations, and my incivility by creating outrage. And it really took me by surprise. And then what happened in the legal profession was this whole movement developed called the civility movement. And it called on lawyers to not be aggressive, to not be outraged, but to be civil. And guess who was promoting that? White male elites, as a means of controlling the people who were making trouble and making those elites uncomfortable. And guess who are the people or the institutions that create human rights problems? It is the elites. It is the powerful. And when they tried to regulate lawyers by putting a blanket over loudmouths like me on the basis that we should be more civil because that's our professional obligation, we rebelled. And so I just say to you, using that example, when I see in the media now that there's attempt to regulate outrage, I do believe that tactically and strategically outrage should probably be progressive. Um, but be careful as you head out into the human rights field about the institutions that may try to hush you up. And never forget that the discussion, the evolution, the implementation of human rights at a better place for people is something that we have to persist with. And as you move on, you've now got a master's of human rights. You, more than most people, are very well equipped to be our soldiers and to be our warriors. And so, congratulations on getting through this. And we'll all be cheering for your success. Thanks.
Thank you, David. I think I'm up next. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
Michael,
that's right, Dr. Anderson.
Yeah, I thought so. Thank you very much. Thanks, David, for your thoughtful remarks. I mean, I really hope that the students, both in terms of this class and the second class, some of whom are here as well tonight, really carry forward this fighting spirit, if I could put it that way, and to also fight smart, to know when to, you know, my mother is always fond of saying to me to know when to pick your battles, which maybe is a bit of a cliche, but I think it is actually smart to know to fight, you know, to fight for what is right and to know when to fight and how to fight. Anyway, so good evening, everyone. Thanks everybody for coming. Thanks to Rhea and Michael and the Master of Human Rights Students Association for organizing this. I think it's actually really cool what you've done with these breakout rooms and everything, and the commencement speaker I think is great. So thanks also to, I'll just thank a few people before I get into things, but thanks also to our speakers tonight. Thank you to David. I know that Dr. Reimer will be saying a few things. Obviously, we have a commencement speaker, Michael Redhead Champagne, so I'm really excited to hear what he has to say. Congratulations to the graduates. It won't be the first or the last time that I say that. But before I get to people who are actually graduating, I also wanted to briefly say something to acknowledge the people who've been working on the program and who have contributed to bringing the program to fruition. As you know, this is our first class. You're our first graduates ever, which is really a big milestone. So just to mention a few of those people before we go on. Marie Javan is here, which I think is obviously fantastic. Hi, Marie. Thank you so much for coming. Marie Javan obviously was our admissions coordinator and played a big role in a very concrete sense of actually bringing you here to study. So thank you so much, Marie, for all of that. Jessica Tapatai, who I don't think is here tonight, but I wasn't expecting her either. But I still want to say something about Jessica. But Jessica has really been an invaluable and dedicated resource for our program. And I know she's really committed to the program and always really goes the extra mile in terms of doing whatever is necessary. I also want to thank the Master of Human Rights Program Committee. I won't mention them all, but I know there are at least a couple of you here, like Karen Busby. I shouldn't mention any because then maybe I have to mention them all. But thank you to everybody on the program committee. Thank you to the faculty advisors. I know there are a few advisors here as well tonight. I also think it's useful to thank your own classmates. I mean, those of you who aren't graduating right now, because I hope that when we start any new academic program, it's also about creating a new community. And you lean on your classmates for all kinds of support. You lean on them as well, of course, to help you learn. And I think this is really crucial. One small thing I want to mention here as well, and I've mentioned it before, I know, but we have a Facebook group that we've created, which is only for students and alumni. It's not for the general public. And the idea of the Facebook group is so that we can continue this networking. I know it'll only grow over time, of course, as we get more and more graduates, but please join if you haven't already, and I'll send some more information about that. So with that done, I also want to, of course, say something about the people actually graduating. So you're the first graduates of the Master of Human Rights program. The program took a very long time to come to fruition. As I know some of you know, Professor Busby, Professor Muller, who was here a moment ago as well. And it's also, you know, I think David said kind of the same thing, but it's really been a challenging, or actually it was Michael, but it's been a challenging couple of years. I mean, I think there are growing pains associated with a new program. And obviously we've done all this against the backdrop of a pandemic, which is, you know, everybody uses this word unprecedented, but it actually is kind of unprecedented. It's already hard enough to do a graduate program, but you had these additional headwinds and you did great. And I know some of you had personal challenges as well, some of which I know about, some of which I don't know about inevitably, but you overcame all this to complete your degrees, which I know is a very big achievement. And there will be others to follow soon, others who started with you as well as the second class and soon to be the third class arriving as well. So I think you're all here because you're passionate about human rights. And this is something that's really energized me, your dedication, your perseverance and your commitment to human rights and your idealism. And I know that all of you genuinely want to make things better. And I think in doing human rights work, you obviously can spend a lot of time and effort focused on the bad, dealing with things that are wrong, things that are cruel, things that are unjust. And in the course of this, you may become frustrated. I'm sure David was frustrated dealing with the Milgard case, to be sure. But equally, as you're going through this, as you're focused on the difficult things, on the things that are wrong, it's also important to keep sight of what's good and to think about what's right and what's good and to put efforts into cultivating the right, the good, and in fact, the kind. And you could do this in so many ways, whether or not you end up in prominent human rights jobs. Some of you will end up in prominent human rights jobs. Some of you will probably go other directions. But in either case, you could contribute to cultivating the good in your work, and I hope in your own lives as well. I don't want to talk for too much longer, but I would also emphasize not to be too hard on yourselves. Because I think in doing this work, it's easy to take a lot of personal responsibility, but to also remember to keep sight of, I suppose, having a balanced life and acknowledging, again, what's good in your life and what's good in the world at the same time. And also to remember that you're always presented with the possibility of changing the future. You're continually presented with this possibility. And I don't mean this as just some sort of empty rhetoric, that this possibility is always there, that you always have this agency, no matter which situation you're in your life, and no matter which point you're in your life, you have this possibility to change the future and to make things better in ways both big and small. So I'm sure that all of you will do great out there. I'm really excited to see what you'll do. Some of you have already done pretty cool things, so I'm looking forward to seeing what everybody does. So congratulations again, everybody, collectively. Maybe we could have a collective applause before we get to the individual students. So I'm going to read out the names of all the 10 students who are graduating right now. And I'll also read out the titles of the theses or major research papers, because I know some of you probably don't know what your colleagues are doing. I think in December we were able to hear from a lot of people, but it's still useful to know, I think, where people ended up. So I'm doing this alphabetically. So Yusuf Abdulkareem, who's not here, I think he might still be in the Netherlands. Yusuf did his major research paper on service animals and emotional support animals, a distinction that privileges physical disabilities over mental and emotional disabilities. So congratulations, Yusuf. Maybe we could applaud after each person, even though I can't hear you. Let's applaud everybody. Secondly, Nwora Azubike. Hi, Nwora. We're still in the realm of Nigeria, sort of. And Nwora did his major research paper on exploring racial profiling as a policing and human rights problem in Toronto. Congratulations, Nwora, on all the hard work and the degree. Next, we have Andrea Campbell. Andrea Campbell did her major research paper on when all we have is each other, failures of the current human rights framework to address structural oppression and the transformative potential of mutual aid networks. Congratulations, Andrea. Brandi Chartier, here in Winnipeg, I know. Brandi, congratulations on your degree. Your major research paper was entitled Access to Justice, Legal Aid, and Other Forms of Advocacy. Congratulations, Brandi. Tosin Fatoyinbo, who I know is thankfully back in Canada now as well. Tosin's major research paper was How Long is Too Long? A brief analysis of lengthy and uncertain duration of immigration detention in habeas corpus applications. Congratulations, Tosin. Ashley Holler. Ashley Holler's major research paper was entitled Dueling Pandemics, the Exacerbation of Intimate Partner Violence During the COVID-19 Crisis in Canada. Congratulations, Ashley. It's so exciting to see all the different things people are doing too. You have such a breadth of topics here, which I think is really cool. Lily Kauffman, our first thesis graduate ever. Although I know there will be others coming in short order as well. Lily Kauffman did her thesis. I think this might be an abbreviated title, but it was Integrating Canadian Youth, Immigrants, Multicultural Rights. So congratulations, Lily, all the way from Mexico. Stephen Lunn, and I think Brian Peeler, Stephen's advisor, is here as well. So thank you, Brian. Stephen Lunn's major research paper was entitled Use ad bellum and Malicious Cyber Operations, a Critical Infrastructure Approach. Congratulations, Stephen. This is the funny thing about the pandemic. Now I know what a lot of people's living rooms and bedrooms look like as well. I'm starting to, I have a good grasp of Stephen's background there. I've seen it a few times. Moving on, Cara McCaskill. Cara did her major research paper on realizing the right to health of newcomer women, survivors of conflict-related sexual violence within the Canadian community healthcare context. Congratulations, Cara. And finally, last but definitely not least, Abigail or Abby Myles did her major research paper on addressing anti-discrimination in intergroup advocacy, intersections of allyship and intervention and development. Congratulations, Abby, and maybe we could unmute our mics just to applaud everybody collectively.
Yay.
Woo!
Hey.
Woohoo! Woohoo!
So we're just about to take a group photo. I just want to make sure that we're not missing anyone that's here. Good. Okay. So could everyone smile? I'll take a few pictures, and it's also being recorded. Perfect. Thank you, guys. Dr. Anderson, is there anything else you wanted to say, or should we pass it over to Dr. Reimer maybe?
That's it for me. So let's pass it on to Dr. Reimer.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation to address you today. It's indeed an honor to congratulate the first graduating class of Canada's only, and I agree with Dean Asper, the best. It will always be the best human rights degree in Canada. I'm sure you know we are very proud of you and this excellent achievement that you have earned. I was asked to speak with you today because I met many of you through your practicum journey. Today and over the next weeks, as you celebrate convocation, you'll hear many good wishes and philosophical statements. But I want to assure you that this really is the road less traveled, and you have done it. When I first met you, I admit I was a little intimidated. I didn't know what to think. Ashley, Brandi, Nwora, and Stephen, I first met you in class, and you captivated me. You were not outraged, you were not offensive, you were not militant. You cared very deeply, you were dignified, and the passions in your heart swelled up and spilled out into the classroom. So when the opportunity came to work with Dr. Anderson, I thought, why wouldn't I do this, to work with these people? I've told many, many, many people, and this includes you guys that are in the second year, you are the cream of the cream. And that's a lot coming from somebody who's taught 16 years in university. Thank you for the witness that you are. Thank you for the way that you carry yourselves in the workshops or in your placements. You've been outstanding ambassadors for the university. But as the practicum coordinator and as part of the Pioneer MHR team, I want to thank you. Because of your excellence, both personal and professional, we now have 28 new positive relationships with organizations around the globe doing human rights work. It's unbelievable that you could forge that kind of partnership. 3 of your placement sites contacted me early in the new year, like right after Christmas time, to request students for this year. So we ended up with more placement opportunities than we had students. And that's again because of you. Each of you set out with objectives for your individual practica that I know you achieved. And many of you have found permanent, relevant employment. Congratulations on that. Because of the standard you set, as I mentioned, we've got all of these different opportunities. Your class brought us NATO, the International Criminal Court, the Ribbon Rouge Foundation, the Human Rights Commission of Nigeria, and multiple opportunities here in Winnipeg. Interestingly, somebody who works in the provincial government contacted me and said, I understand you're the practicum coordinator for that new MHR thing at U of M. I've got a bunch of people in the province that want to work with your students. And that blew me out of the water. So again, thank you for being excellent ambassadors for the university and especially for our program. So as you go out now beyond the MHR and into the world, I am reminded of the wisdom of the great, though fictitious educator, Albus Dumbledore, who said, it is not our abilities that define us, but our choices. You have both great ability and character. You have a track record of good choices. I wish each of you the best that life can bring you. And I thank you again that I got to be part of your that I got to be a small part of your very important journey. Thank you.
may I just briefly say something, Michael, because I believe in my earlier thank yous, I neglected to mention Dr. Reimer, who's obviously done an absolutely phenomenal job in setting up the Practica and establishing all these contexts that she was mentioning. Really all Dr. Reimer, as well as just being a really great, caring mentor for the students. So we really appreciate you, Laura, for everything you've done. And especially, you know, doing the first Practicum and everything was kind of late and then we had a pandemic. I don't need to remind you. And somehow you still made it all work, which was, you know, that credit all goes to you. So thank you as well, Dr.
Oh, well, thank you.
Great
It was
job.
truly my pleasure. Thank you. I'll miss you
Up
guys.
next- Up next, Danielle volunteered to share some words.
I was trying to prepare for this and to speak to everybody. I'm graduating in the fall, so I'm so unbelievably proud of everybody for convocating this term. And in trying to prepare, all I can go back to is how grateful I am to be a part of this group. And I will try not to cry. When I looked for a master's program, I wanted something that married my passion for education and my passion for human rights, and that program didn't exist. And fortuitously, this program was brought to my attention, and I was able to shape the program to look at my area of interest and learn tons about other human rights. I was also very compelled by doing this within the Faculty of Law, and I think that that perspective has given me a lot of great insights and great perspectives that I've taken into my employment now, and I'm finishing up my own studies. Particularly as we've finished through the pandemic and all of the different global political events that have been happening, I'm so grateful to have had our education and our experience when the Black Lives Matter protests were happening last year, and countless other egregious violations and other events that have been happening over the last year and a half plus. The ability to talk with many of you about what's happening and to draw on our experience and be able to understand the world in a different way, I think is really invaluable. So I can't thank all of you enough, including, of course, Dr. Anderson and the wonderful folks who've put this all together. And I won't try to list everybody either, but I'm so eternally grateful to have been a part of this. I didn't expect to learn as much from each other as we did. And I don't think that the personal connections that I've been able to make with each and every one of you would have been possible in another cohort, because I do feel like we've all become friends individually with each other, and that doesn't happen very often in graduate school. So when we disassembled for the pandemic, we had class, I remember that Friday, or Thursday, perhaps, the whatever day the world ended for us, and I literally went home, packed a bag, and came back to Edmonton. And that was a big loss that I've had to grieve, because I missed you guys so much. And seeing everyone again, it's just all coming back, but we did our best and we got through everything. So thank you all for teaching me so much, and I'm really excited to keep in touch and see what everyone's doing going forward.
Thank you for that. And up next, Abby wanted to share some words.
Hey, everybody. It's so great to see all of your faces. I am very happy. But when I was asked to share about my experience, a lot of the themes that have already been touched upon were the first things to come to mind. We had to navigate a lot of challenges. As the first cohort to go through this, there were not only uncertainties as to what the program would look like, how our practicums would work, how all of our courses would fit together. Then there was also this thing called COVID thrown into the mix, and we all kind of had to disperse and navigate that as it came at us. And this, I think, because of the circumstances, also really increased the family and the community that was created in the program. One of the first memories that came to mind when I was asked to share about my experience was sitting in Robson Hall with my gray bag of goodies during orientation and just scanning the room for the other gray bags. I think it was Brandi and Bobby I found and just like flocked to them and like held up my gray bag, and we kind of just created a clump of us. And that was where it all started. And it was kind of from that moment on in classes or in the study space. You always knew that if there was something on your mind or if there was something you were struggling with, there would be someone who was willing to listen or talk through it. I don't know how many times I walked to Starbucks or used Cara's kettle to have tea and chats after lectures or before lectures. And it really just is invaluable when I think of where I really processed the information to then be able to use in placements or in research. It was in a lot of those conversations that we were having of like, okay, guys, who understands what's going on with this? Or like, how does this relate with this area? And also such diverse backgrounds of interest. It really helped when I was struggling and something was totally out of my wheelhouse. I knew that there was someone else in the program who had expertise in that area or had some experience that I could go to. And in human rights, as people have been saying, it's often very difficult to not get sidetracked. There's always another issue, there's always another cause, and it's really hard not to want to tackle them all or want to get invested with them all. And it's really easy to spread yourself too thin. And I think one of the major takeaways from this program was that I'm allowed to focus on things that I'm passionate about because there are so many capable human beings who are in this program and who are out doing the work that are taking care of the other things that I can't manage, and none of us has to do it on our own. And as Danielle said, that's not often something that you find in academic or professional spaces when it can be very, very competitive. And it was just very apparent from the start that that was not the way that we were going to be doing things. And I'm so grateful for every single one of you for the connections that this program has brought. And I can't wait until we are all across the world and doing our stuff and we can have reunions in beautiful places and not be stuck in our homes. So thank you all. I have so much love in my heart for each and every one of you, and thank you for everyone who has allowed tonight to happen so we can all see each other, but also has allowed this entire MHR journey happen for our graduating class.
Thank you for sharing that. We have about 10 more minutes until we have our commencement address. So if anyone else would like to share anything, a story or two, all you have to do is raise your hand and I can select you.
Can I say something? It's Shelley.
Yeah, take it away.
Thanks. Tosin wrote a note about it in the chat at the exact same time that I was thinking it. But Abby, like one of my favorite memories all year was when you handmade everybody in class a Valentine, like like elementary school. It was the best. I loved it. Anyway, what a great group. I always said that, like, how do you find the most wonderful people on the planet? You just create a human rights program. I always thought that this was just such a fantastic group of people, and I'm so proud of you guys. And yeah, I'm sad that I'm not graduating with you, but hopefully not too far behind you guys. So anyway, I wanted to mention the Valentines. That was just priceless. I loved it.
We'll do it again in the fall, by the way, for whoever's graduating in the fall and also next spring. So this isn't.
Is there anyone else that would like to share anything, or maybe we should move into our keynote presentation? Yeah, Nwora.
Thank you, everyone. First of all, I want to thank Professor Anderson. I also want to thank Dr. Remer, and I want to thank my colleagues. I want to thank all the supervisors and advisors who have brought us this far and prepare us for the way forward. And I want to say also the journey to human rights study or Master of Human Rights program started from somewhere, but it has to start. It started with an inner glow to uphold that human right. And we've taken it this far. And looking at all the treaties, the core treaties of human rights, all the generations of human rights, the sources of human rights, and all the practicum studies we've done, I also want to remind my colleagues that we have two things to look at: the legal and the moral obligations to continue upholding these human rights and take it across the world, because we've been trained by the best. I believe we're sure-footed. I believe so. And I think we learned a lot from the Dean's story about the outrage, knowing that human rights is never given on a platter of gold. It has always been a struggle across the history of human rights. So I wish us well, and I thank everyone. Thank you.
Last chance, anyone else would like to share a few words? All right, I'm not seeing anyone. So without further ado, Michael Redhead Champagne has spent over 2 decades speaking out and leading by example. He takes a hopeful and solution-oriented approach to youth engagement, facilitation, and community organizing. He enjoys writing, listening to revolution music, and volunteering in Winnipeg's North End. Michael is known for his straight-up and heartfelt style that will leave you moved, inspired, and ready for action. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Michael. Great name. Great name.
Thank you, you too.
Why do Michaels always have to say that? It's a rule. It's the weirdest thing. We just have to. Hello, everybody. My name is also Michael. Michael Redhead Champagne is my name. And I'm really honored today. And I'm actually I just want to echo a couple of the things that already just got mentioned. Very eloquent comments there. I believe it's Nwora. Thank you very much for what you just shared with everybody. I appreciate that because I think it's true. I think this is a moment tonight, a moment of celebration for everyone to acknowledge the difficult journey that it has been. No big deal, just, human rights during a pandemic, when every single element of human rights has been challenged and flipped on its head. And you guys are like, oh yeah, I'll just do a master's program in that, no big deal. So my hat is off to you. I want to begin by just saying I'm so impressed with all of you for having the stick-to-itiveness to make it all the way here tonight. And I appreciate how many helpers I see sitting around the Zoom screen today who are, I know, going to continue to do amazing things, not only here in our city, our province, our country, but yes, the world. And so I wanted to quickly introduce myself and share a couple comments. So my name is Michael Redhead Champagne. I dressed up for you folks tonight. I put on a vest and a bow tie and everything. I'm like, I feel like we're supposed to dress up for these things. And I just wanted to show you all how special I think you are, even though I'm still in my house. I just want to get dressed up like you guys. So I appreciate being able to get fancy. Thank you all for giving me a reason to celebrate. And it really is a reason for me to celebrate. I'm originally from Shamattawa First Nation in northern Manitoba, but I was born and raised in the North End of Winnipeg. And so if any of you folks are North Enders, then woo, you already know all about human rights if you live in the North End of Winnipeg. And you know all about human wrongs. And so I think today is a moment for us to be able to think about how we've come to be here and what the future holds, because it's almost like today is the moment where everything changes for us. And so my work in the community over the last few years has been a lot working with youth, but more and more it's working with broader systems. And so I was very honored to be connected to the folks who helped select Viola Desmond to be on the $10 bill. I remember being invited to that committee and saying, don't you think it should be women selecting the first woman to be on the Canadian bill? And they said, yes, Michael, 5 out of the 7 people are women. There's only 2 men. And I said, okay, fine. Also, oh, hey, look at David. David Asper, thank you very much. There it is, everyone. Look at David's screen there. He's got the bill there. And on the other side, of course, what do we got? Human Rights Museum. Now, I actually had nothing to do with that one, but because I'm from Winnipeg, everyone was like, wow, Michael did a great job advocating on the $10 bill committee for Winnipeg. I had nothing to do with that one, but I happened to be related to that by geography. But it was an honor for me to be a part of that. But it was a lesson for me. It was a lesson for me in privilege. For me, I think as a male, I have to recognize and understand that there are going to be moments in the world where I'm privileged for no reason other than the fact that I happen to be a male. And it becomes important for all of the men and the male presenting folks that are here today to recognize that privilege and do what we can to support our women and gender diverse folks around us and make sure that we are uplifting folks so that we can smash the patriarchy. All right, I'm not here to play nice. I'm here to smash the patriarchy. And we do this by lifting up women. We do this by supporting gender diverse folks. We do this by recognizing our privilege, and there are moments where sometimes we have to step aside. And so it's been a really interesting journey for me as a public speaker and a community leader over these years, being able to get access to certain places and faces at moments and stepping aside. And I know that sometimes people wonder, what do you mean activism is stepping aside? Well, that's just the reality of equity. That's the reality if we're looking for justice. Sometimes what we do is we use ourselves and our privileges, and I imagine this is what all of you are going to be able to do with your awesome academic credentials now. Use those credentials to smash into different places, right? And say, yo, equity and justice is here. What's up, everyone? Hope you weren't feeling too comfortable, because we got to make people feel uncomfortable. We have to ask those questions that cause people to think about, what are my privileges? What am I benefiting from? A lot of the work I do, I'll mention two of the projects that I work with. One of the projects I work with that I think relates very strongly with your work, and I actually wanted to talk to you all about this, so I'm happy to be here today. I work with a group of volunteers called Health Buddies Winnipeg, and we're just getting started. It's only been in development for about a year, and we haven't hit the ground running yet, but we have a whole bunch of research, legislation, and information about what patient rights are in Manitoba. And so, pop quiz. Let's see how many people know patient rights in Manitoba. How many patient rights do I have if I'm in the province of Manitoba in the healthcare system? What are my patient rights that are guaranteed by legislation? Anybody? Now, I ask this because the answer is that we only have two rights. Both of them are relating to the Public Health Information Act. Both of them are relating to sharing information or allowing other people to access our information. We don't have a right to access culturally safe, anti-racist, harm reductionist care. There is no such right in our legislation. And I learned this in the last year with these amazing, strong, primarily Indigenous women with Health Buddies Winnipeg that have shared their experiences of having to deal with healthcare of themselves, their loved ones, while being Indigenous, while being Black, while having to deal with patriarchy, while having to deal with judgment just because they happen to use a different drug than somebody else to numb their pain, right? And I just gotta say, I take a very harm reductionist approach to the way that I do stuff in the world. And when I'm working with community members that, like in my North End neighborhood where I live, a lot of people don't have financial resources for therapy. They don't have financial resources for all those like prescription drugs that, you know, don't have so much stigma attached to them. And so they sometimes will use different drugs. Sometimes they will use different harmful substances to numb their pain. And it's important for me as somebody who often is able to, you know, have conversations with leaders like you, to say that I don't judge my relatives and my neighbors for doing the best they can with the tools that they have available to them. And what I do recognize, though, is that they are in pain. And that's the thing that I am hearing when I see people using drugs, when I see so much crystal meth in our communities, when I see the opioids and the overdoses that are taking too many of our relatives, when I see people sleeping on the streets, when I see families overrepresented in child welfare, when I see Indigenous people dying in the healthcare system. When I see all of these things, it reminds me of how much help we really need if we want human rights to be a real thing. Because I'll be honest, Indigenous people and folks living in poverty, some of the Black folks that I've connected with in our community, people that are new to Canada, there's a common theme that I've heard from a number of these people. And it's that Winnipeg likes to call itself a human rights city, but sometimes it feels like all of our human rights are locked up inside a museum. How come we don't have access to them? How come everybody in this city isn't housed, isn't fed, isn't cared for? Then we're a human rights city. I believe we'll be a human rights city when we're able to say that we actually take care of the humans in this city, and not until. And so while I appreciate that we have the Human Rights Museum here, while I appreciate that we have programs like the Masters of Human Rights, I also recognize how much of a challenge that is to all of us that claim that we believe in human rights. How much of a challenge it is for all of us to make sure that our community can have integrity as we move forward, and isn't just talking about human rights, but is actually delivering. And we can't do that without equity. We can't do that without harm reduction. We can't do that without justice. And so Health Buddies Winnipeg is one example of that. But another example of work that I do is with Fearless R2W, and that's related to the child welfare system. And so we're fearlessr2w.ca. We're also on all the social media platforms as an organization. Was a grassroots organization for 5.5 years and has now become a legally incorporated nonprofit for the last 6 months. I've never done this with any of my projects in all of my time being a community leader in Winnipeg, but now we're becoming a nonprofit. And so guess what? It's terrible. There is so much red tape, limitations, bureaucracy, barriers that are not justified in any meaningful way, that take people away from doing the important work that is justice and human rights, and instead gets them spending all day filling out paperwork. So anyway, I feel like we really have to look at the different systems like child welfare, like healthcare, and ask ourselves what rights are actually guaranteed to people in those places, because we can't find them. In the north end of Winnipeg, a lot of the time, we can't find them. So if you know where I can find human rights today, send me a message on social media. I'll put my hand up in the little thing. I'm curious to know where we can find these bad boys, because we need them. We need human rights to make sure that we can be a human rights city with integrity. I also just want to acknowledge a lot of the work that I do with Fearless R2W and child welfare and working with Indigenous families and trying to address homelessness. And also my own history. I didn't mention this, but I am the son of a residential school survivor myself. And so this last couple weeks, as everyone's been talking about 215 children in Indian residential schools, and people's jaws have been on the floor saying, I'm so shocked, how could this happen in Canada? It's been heartbreaking, because what it says to a lot of my relatives, a lot of folks that are related to residential school survivors, it says that the country wasn't listening. Because in 2015, 5 Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls to action were dedicated to this very subject. And if you could tell me why calls to action 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, everyone got collective amnesia for some reason when they read those, I would love to know that too. And so what I hope for now, my message now, is that if you are outraged, there's a roadmap that residential school survivors have already laid out for us. And I ask that you take those calls to action, and each of us commit to one. I'm not asking you to change the world. I'm asking you to take one call to action as your personal call to action. All right, and while you're at it, read the calls for justice from the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls Inquiry as well. Add one of those. Take that call for action, take that call for justice, and guess what that becomes? That becomes the foundation for your statement on reconciliation, on justice, like for real. And you don't have to go to Indigenous people and say, can you explain to me your suffering? Because I promise you, we already told you time and time again. And so what I'm looking forward to is the day where we'll be able to have justice in Canada. And to me, justice in Canada happens when human rights are going to be respected. And it only happens when children are safe and families are protected. And so to me, the last thing I guess that I'll share is that for us at Fearless R2W, we have values that every time we get together, even if it's in a Zoom chat like this, we read those values out. And one of those values that I was so happy was adopted by Fearless R2W actually came from the people who raised me. I was raised by these beautiful people called the Champagnes. They recently got sick with COVID-19. And my mom ended up being intubated. It was very freaking scary. But they're okay. They're both home now and they're recovering. They had COVID, then they had pneumonia, and then there was complications, but they're home now. And the Champagnes actually, before they got sick, were emergency foster placements in Manitoba. And they were emergency foster placements in the late 80s, the same time I needed somewhere. But they were emergency foster placements for over 300 kids. And so what that meant is that my whole time growing up, even though the Champagnes had adopted me, I always seen random people who I did not know showing up at the house with their little updates. Hey, I graduated from the Masters of Human Rights program. You know, those little updates. Hey, I'm pregnant. Hey, I got a job. You know, those updates, those people you got to go to when you got good news. That's how you know who your family is. And as I learned my language, as I learned Swampy Cree, I learned about words like Wakotowin. There's a beautiful word called Wakotowin, and it talks about our kinship and how we're related to each other. And how not just humans, we're not just related to our families that we're blood related to, we're related to everyone. And in the spirit of that Wakotowin, and as we reclaim these Indigenous kinship systems, as we reclaim our language and learn about things like Wakotowin, I'm inspired by the Champagnes and the lesson that they teach me with their example. They never said this, but their example taught me this lesson. And I'll finish here and stop talking. The lesson that they shared overlaps with that Fearless R2W value, and this is what it is. It is all of our responsibility to take care of all of the children all of the time. Period. Every child is my child. And so when we talk about keeping people safe, when we talk about keeping families safe, I know that there are beautiful teachings within First Nations language, within First Nations culture, within Indigenous teachings that can be shared. And I'm just so honored to be here today to be able to share a little bit of the beautiful things for my community and my culture with you. And on behalf of these families that are involved in the child welfare system from Fearless R2W, on behalf of these kids that are aging out without a family, and I know that you guys are going to be a part of helping be there with Wakotowin, on behalf of the people that are struggling right now and don't think that we got any human rights in Winnipeg, I want to thank you, because I know that all of you are going to be working towards equity and justice in a good way, in a meaningful way in this city to make sure that some of these horrible things that I referenced today aren't going to be here forever. Because we don't have the time. We got to get busy now. And so if you needed a kick in the butt, consider this the kick in the butt. If you needed an invitation, consider this your invitation. I need you, because without you, too many more families will be separated, too many more Indigenous kids, and too many kids, period, in this country are going to look to things for a solution, places like suicide. And I think that we can create more hope than that. I think we can do a little bit better than that for our kids and all kids in this country. And so I'm super grateful to have so many teachings shared with me, and I'm honored to be able to share a little bit of them with you today. So I think I have to stop. I think I should stop talking soon, but I want to say thank you for listening to me. You guys have been a really awesome audience. I really, really appreciate all of you. And I did just throw my my social media handle in the chat if you folks want to connect with me on any platform. the last thing that I just wanted to say, I know I said this a couple times, but last thing for real this time, is that I just wanted to ask each of us that maybe if there was a place like a practicum placement or a place that we interacted with during your journey here, if we could just give a little bit of love to them in the chat, and just say in the chat, like, who do we love? Who is doing a great job in Winnipeg today? I want to finish my chat with you today by having a little bit of hope. And I want to hear from you about who you think, if there are any groups, organizations, or individuals that you've come across that are inspiring to you, that have, shown you that there are people taking this human rights journey seriously in their day-to-day work, and, the people that you want to be like. So I'd love to see in the chat if people do have people that they want to give shout outs to. I'd like to encourage all of you to throw those in the chat, just for a little bit of celebration, because this is supposed to be a party. I think I'll stop there, but thank you also. There we go. Manitoba Association of Rights and Liberties. We're getting a few here. Canadian Center for Policy Alternative. Yes, thank you. Dr. Danielle Goche, wonderful mentor. Love that. Thank you. Sunshine House. They have a great measured alcohol program. Check that bad boy out. It's a good one. Clinic and MP Leah Gazan. She is just kicking ass. I'm just so proud of Leah Gazan. She's the greatest. Dr. Jessica Senahai, my lovely advisor. Thank you. This is so great, everybody. Thank you. Thank you to everyone who just shared. And thank you to everyone who's participated in this program. And I thank you in advance for the urgency that I know you are all going to act with to ensure that we can be a human rights city in action as well as in word. So thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you for that powerful speech. In a minute, I will open back up the breakout rooms unless anyone else had something that they felt like they wanted to share tonight.
Yeah, thank you to everybody who put this on.